Hey, Jason here from Simply Swider. So your GE washer fills with water and goes through the wash cycle, but then just sits there refusing to spin. I totally get it. It's incredibly frustrating. You're probably worried the motor died or some expensive computer part failed. But here's the good news. 9 times out of 10, it's actually something simple and cheap to fix. Before we get started, if you run into any questions, jump into our Facebook group. Links in the description. We've got thousands of people helping each other fix their appliances, and I pop in there daily to help out. Now, here's what's actually happening behind the scenes. Your washer's got multiple safety systems that all have to give the green light before it'll start spinning. Think of it like a chain reaction. If any one link breaks, the whole spin cycle gets shut down. Here's the real world breakdown. Most no spin cases come down to safety switches that think the lid's open, worn out belts that can't grab anymore, or clogged drains that trick the washer into thinking there's still water in there. We're going to diagnose these in order of probability, not in parts shopping order. So the big one, and I'm talking about half the calls I get, is a busted lid switch on top loaders or a door lock on front loaders. Here's what happens. This little safety switch has to tell the computer, hey, the lid's closed and locked, it's safe to spin. When it fails, your washer just sits there like a stubborn mule. I had this customer last week, Linda, who was convinced her 10-year-old GE was toast because it wouldn't spin. Turns out she'd been slamming that lid pretty hard for years, and the internal contacts in the switch finally gave up. You can actually test this. If you've got a top loader and that lid light stays on or keeps flashing, that's your smoking gun right there. To check it properly, you'll want to run the diagnostic mode. This takes about 2 minutes, and every GE has a lid switch test built right in. Simply press and hold the power button for 3 seconds while opening and closing the lid. If the switch doesn't change status when you open and close the lid, it's failed and needs replacement. Don't ask me how I know this, but trying to bypass these switches is asking for trouble. Just replace it. You're looking at maybe 20 to 40 bucks versus a couple hundred for a service call. Next up is the drive belt, and this one trips people up all the time. The motor's running fine, making all the right noises, but the drum just sits there. What's happening is that rubber belt connecting the motor to the transmission has either snapped completely or stretched out so much it's just slipping. I remember this guy who called me, swore up and down his motor was dead because he could hear it running, but nothing was moving. I got under there and found his belt had turned into what looked like spaghetti, just hanging there in pieces. Happens more than you'd think, especially if you're one of those folks who likes to wash heavy comforters. Here's how you check, and safety first, always unplug the washer before starting. You'll need a flashlight and possibly a screwdriver to remove the bottom panel. Tilt the washer back or remove that bottom access panel and take a look. If the belt's missing chunks covered in black rubber dust, or you can pull it off the pulleys by hand, there's your problem. Pro tip: if you find grease all over the belt and pulleys, that usually means your transmission's leaking, which is a whole different conversation about whether it's worth fixing. This one's sneaky because everything sounds normal, but when you look closer, the plastic parts that connect the motor to the drive system have basically been chewed up. I'm talking about those plastic teeth inside the drive pulley or the motor coupling. They get stripped smooth from too much torque. Had a lady a few months back who was washing king-size comforters in a regular capacity washer. The motor would spin. The belt looked fine, but nothing was happening. Pulled that drive pulley off, and it looked like someone had taken a grinder to the inside. All those plastic splines were just smooth as butter. To check this, you'll need to remove the pulley nut and take a peek inside. If you see plastic shavings or those internal teeth are worn flat, that's your culprit. It's not a hard fix, but you'll need a pulley puller to get the old one off. Don't try to hammer it. Trust me on that one. Here's something that catches people off guard. If your washer can't get the water out, it absolutely will not spin. It's a safety thing. The computer's thinking, hey, there's still water in here. I'm not going to fling it all over the laundry room. This happens when socks, coins, bobby pins, you name it, get past the drum and jam up the drain pump. I pulled a wire from a kid's toy out of one last month. The pump tries to run, makes this low humming noise, but it can't move any water. Easy check. If there's standing water in the tub 10 minutes after a cycle ends, start here. On most GE washers, you can access the pump filter through the front bottom panel. Look for a small rectangular or circular cover. Important, have several towels ready and a shallow pan to catch water because you'll definitely get wet when you open this. If the pump's getting power but not moving water, it's either clogged or the motor's fried from trying to push past whatever's stuck in there. This little tube is like the washer's water level gauge, and when it gets clogged with soap, scum, and lint, your washer thinks the tub's still full even when it's bone dry. I see this a lot with folks who use way too much detergent or those concentrated pods. The tube runs from the side of the tub up to either a pressure switch or directly to the control board. When it's blocked, the washer gets confused and locks out the spin cycle. Here's the weird part: everything else works fine, it just refuses to spin. To check this, you'll need to disconnect that thin tube and blow through it. If there's resistance or you can't blow through it at all, that's your problem. Sometimes I can clear these with a tiny drill bit, 1/16 inch, just turned by hand, not with a drill. Usually doesn't cost you anything but time. Now, this one's tricky because it looks like everything's working at first. The drum starts spinning, gets going for maybe 5 to 7 seconds, then just stops dead. What's happening is the speed sensor, this little magnetic or optical sensor that tells the computer how fast things are spinning, has gone bad. I've seen these get smashed when a belt snaps and goes flying around under the machine. Other times they just fail internally from vibration or moisture. The computer starts the spin, doesn't get the speed feedback it's looking for, and shuts everything down for safety. This is where a lot of people get burned financially. They assume the whole motor's shot and spend 150 bucks or more on a new one when really it's just a $20 sensor clipped onto the side. If your washer's doing that spin for a few seconds, then quit thing, check the speed sensor before you do anything else. Last on the list because it's the least common, but when the main computer or the inverter board fails, you get no spin at all. The machine might go through the motions, fill, agitate, drain, but when it comes time to spin, nothing happens. This is usually from power surges, lightning, or sometimes a failing pump draws too much current and fries the control relays. I had one case where a customer's drain pump was so seized up it pulled enough amps to literally burn the traces off the main board. Before you throw parts at this, try a complete reset. Unplug the washer for a couple minutes, then do the specific lid lift reset sequence for your model. Sometimes it's just a software glitch. If that doesn't work and you're getting fault codes pointing to inverter or communication errors, then you're looking at board replacement. The lid switch or door lock assembly, you're looking at somewhere between 20 and 40 bucks for the part. These are usually pretty straightforward to replace, especially on top loaders where it's just under the top panel. The tricky part is making sure you get the right one for your model because the mounting tabs and wire connections vary. Here's where people mess up. They assume they can repair the switch by cleaning the contacts or bending something back into place. Don't waste your time. Once these internal contacts melt or the plastic housing cracks, it's done for. Just replace it and move on. Drive belts are cheap, 12 to 30 bucks depending on your model. Here's the thing though, when you're putting a new belt on, clean those pulleys with rubbing alcohol first. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people slap a new belt on greasy pulleys and wonder why it's slipping again in a week. If you find the belt slipping because of transmission oil leaking all over everything, that's a different conversation. You're not just looking at a belt replacement anymore. You might be looking at a new transmission, and that's when you start thinking about whether the washer's worth fixing. Drain pumps are probably the most expensive common repair. You're looking at 30 to 100 bucks depending on your model. Sometimes you can save the pump by just clearing out whatever's jamming the impeller, but if the motor windings are fried, the whole pump's got to go. Here's a pro tip. Before you order a new pump, make sure the problem isn't just a kinked drain hose or a clogged standpipe in your laundry room. I've seen people replace perfectly good pumps because their house plumbing was backing up. The speed sensor's cheap, usually 20 to 30 bucks, but here's where you can save some serious money. A lot of places want to sell you the sensor with the whole wire harness attached for like 150 bucks. Unless the wires are completely destroyed, just get the sensor and splice it into your existing wires. Takes an extra 10 minutes, but saves you over $100. Now let's talk money. Here's what you'll spend on parts versus calling a repair technician. Most of these parts cost between $20 to $50, but a service call starts at $100 minimum before any work begins. So if you're comfortable with basic tools like screwdrivers and pliers, you could save $200 to $300 on labor costs alone. Now you can see right there on your screen the most common GE models that run into these spin cycle problems. The newer top loaders with the hydrowave system seem to eat up mode shifters, while the front load GFW series has issues with inverter boards failing. Don't ask me how I know that, but if you've got one of these models showing on the screen, you're definitely not alone in dealing with this headache. That's how you tackle a GE washer that won't spin. Here's your action plan. First, test the lid switch. It causes 50% of no-spin problems. Second, inspect the drive belt for cracks or stretching. Third, check if the drain pump is moving water. These top three fixes solve most problems for under $50 in parts and can be done in 30 minutes or less. Here's the thing, don't just throw parts at it hoping something works. Take the time to actually diagnose what's wrong, because replacing a control board when you really need a $20 belt is just throwing money away. And hey, if you catch these problems early, like when you start hearing squealing or thumping noises, you can usually fix them before they turn into bigger headaches. If you guys know someone who's having appliance troubles, please send them the link to this video or a link to my channel, where I have tons of other videos showing how to fix pretty common issues with appliances, sometimes for free or as little cost as possible. It sure beats having a repairman come out and spending several hundred for them to fix it when it could be something so simple. If this helped you get your GE washer spinning again, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Let me know which fix worked for you. Really helps other people with the same problem. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We'll get this out to more folks who need to save some time and money. Thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.